Um, Anywho, brief overview for those of you who haven't like really looked at the syllabus. For the most part, this class is broken up into, you've got lecture quizzes and you've got exams. And then you also have in the lab, you'll have lab quizzes that are a subcategory of lab projects. Your lab projects, I believe, are 20% of your overall grade. Now, the way that this works, and this should be in the syllabus, if it's not, it'd be kind of weird. But the way that it works is, so you'll have, I believe, fall and spring, we do 9 projects. Each project, you will be submitting a quiz that's related to the project, and then the actual code for that project. And at the end, you'll have the 2 assignments per project. Well, those all get averaged, and in the end, you'll have, that is 20% of your final grade. Yeah, us TAs, we do the lab assignments. We're not involved in the lecture quizzes. I can still try to help you with the lecture quizzes, but since I won't be able to see them, if you have questions about them, you'll have to show me. And I do my best to help. But again, that's a separate domain. That is its own thing. You guys are lucky. In the past, the lab quizzes used to actually be eye clicker quizzes in person, and they were limited to like 10 minutes. Now y'all get to ball and just be like, you get to do them in a whole week. And they're online at home. And you get 2 attempts per quiz, lab quiz, not lecture quiz. Let's see. Other important things to remember, and all of these things that I'm telling you right now, they will be gone over again as we keep going. It's more of just like a, hey, I want you to be aware of it now, and that way it's not like a shock to you when we actually start the projects. You have to submit your code for every project. And if you don't submit your code for the project, the whole project grade is a 0, regardless of what you get on the project quiz. So at the bare minimum, always try to submit your code. If that's all you do, because if you don't, then obviously you get a 0, and any effort you put into the quiz is completely wasted. Late policy, you can submit your projects up to an hour late, I believe. There's like a 10 to 15% penalty, I think. But you still get that extra hour window. And general schedule is we will be doing a project a week approximately. This week we're just going over intro. Actually, do you guys have the lab resource page and everything on your web course, or is it blank? I wish I didn't have to ask you guys these questions. But this wouldn't be the first time that I had to fly into this course with my web course access.
So,
it should be, so like if you're in the home page, and you're scrolling through it, there should be a link that says lab resources. Is that there? And you click on it?
Yeah.
Does it show all the lab skeletons and the intro lab file?
Intro to Octave, Project 2, Project 3, all that stuff?
Yeah. Yes. Okay, cool. So in that case, this file should be already saved or like uploaded so that you guys have access to it. So you don't have to worry about writing anything down today. It's just going to be chatting about it, going over some brief topics. And then every week you'll want to download the skeletons that are in that lab resources page. Unless I'm pretty sure we published the skeletons under there. We only teach the honor section in the fall, so it's been a while since we had the honor section. But anywho, and basically like the way it goes is you guys have the skeleton for the project, and I will go over what should be filled into said skeleton in order to complete the project. Now, I'm not going to give you literally everything, but I try to make it as comprehensive for you guys as possible so that you're not like crying at home because you have to do this assignment and then also a bunch of other assignments for other classes. my goal is to help you guys understand what's going on. Because I loved this class when I took it. So if I could get you guys to at least not hate it, that'd be the goal. But we'll see. I usually get a couple of people that complain to me anyway. So yeah, anyway, yeah, you'll want to fill those in. And also what's going to happen is tentatively, usually how it goes, it doesn't always follow this. But so we have labs on Fridays, right? The assignment for that lab that you'll have to submit will usually get published the following Monday. And then you will have until midnight the next, like the following Friday to submit it, is usually how it goes. We usually try to get the assignment uploaded by the Friday that you have that lab. And that way you can actually just like get started on it here. But sometimes it takes a while to get things approved. Yeah, and we also usually don't have labs the week, like we do have labs, and we'll do a review lab like the week before an exam. And I'll hold a review and like talk to you guys about what's gonna be on it. I think that's it on like housekeeping stuff. Anybody have any questions? No? Okay, cool. Oh, and also last thing, I usually make this request, and it'll be easier for me to try to hold you guys to it since there's only like 19 of you in this class. I request that you guys try to put jokes into your code because grading sucks. And so if you can make me smile, I will appreciate it a lot. So I even had one dude submitting ASCII art to me last semester. Like literally it was fantastic. Full on memes, but in ASCII art submitted into his projects. And I cannot tell you guys how much I appreciated that. So I'm just saying. Anyway. Onto our octave introduction. Can you guys see it, or do I need to turn off the light? Oh. Second. Okay. So, octave. I love octave. Lots of people like to say it in the clean version. They like to poop on it because it's free MATLAB. It's the Dollar Tree version of MATLAB. But honestly, like I appreciate it a lot. It's not as functional as MATLAB, but for our purposes, we don't need it to be. So y'all will need to get octave on your own personal computers because this room is not always available to you to use outside of lab hours. Like you could try to sneak in during like intro to CAD labs and pretend that you're doing intro to CAD, but working on modeling methods. But I don't believe any of the Atrium computers downstairs have octave. None of my lab computers have octave because the IT department won't let us download octave onto my lab computers, which doesn't make any sense. But you know, we out here, it's UCF. So yeah, try your best to get octave on your computer. If you cannot, like you try and you just cannot get it to work on your computer, please reach out to me or Dr. Kasab, and Dr. Kasab will point you to me. We'll figure something out because like worst case scenario, we've had it happen before and we just have you use MATLAB instead because you can either use the downstairs computers or you can remote into the downstairs computers and use MATLAB because we have MATLAB on those. And then you just do your projects in MATLAB, but I need to know before you do because MATLAB and octave. So this is cool. And I usually try to emphasize this. So at the end of this class, sure, we're working on octave, but you can put on your resume that you know MATLAB because octave and MATLAB are almost identical. Now, the caveat is there is some syntactic differences. They are light, but sometimes they really impact whether or not your code will run. Hence why I need you guys, if you have to use MATLAB, I need to know, because otherwise your code may not work for me, and I'll think it's that your code's broken, but in reality it's just you use MATLAB instead. So yeah, that's a fun little point. But anywho, so intro. How many of you guys actually have touched Octave or MATLAB? 1, 2, 3. Okay, that's cool. That's cool. So this is like not necessary for you guys because I'm just going to talk about the bare basics. Because let's see. And also to reiterate, you know, again, this file is on WebCourses. So you don't have to write any of this down. And then also, as we go and we work on the projects, I will explain step by step everything that I do and everything that I code. So that way you guys get a better understanding of why you do what you do and how to do certain things in MATLAB/Octave. So anywho, so something like having Octave print, so your print function, printf, it looks something like this first line where you've got printf, parentheses. Inside here is what you want to print. You put that inside little quotations. You can use double or single, it doesn't really matter, but they have to be consistent. You guys, I know everybody here had to take Intro to C because it's a requirement, but that doesn't guarantee that you're going to remember anything from it, because I know I sure as heck did not remember anything from it when I came to this class. But on the off chance that you're lucky and you remember the /n, that's the new line. More of this printy stuff. You can make it display the date. So the display function, similar to printf, but it's a way to print something that's not necessarily a string. And in this case, we're printing the date function, which will give us today's date. And you don't even have to put anything in it. It just spits out today's date. So for example, we'll hit run. Oh, come on. Problem is the one thing I haven't yet to figure out is how to zoom in on the command window. Because I have a feeling that y'all can't really see that. Because that is the entire block of this intro block from lines 1 to 5. And if you download this and just run it on your own, you'll have a better idea of exactly what I'm talking about, since you probably can't really see the output. But this is just our header, intro to Octave, Madison, and then today's date, which comes from display date. And I guess to like kind of backtrack a little bit. So the main setup of Octave, so you're looking at it, you have it opened up, and this is a better thing that I'm going to do, so I'm going to close out of this. We'll get rid of everything. So when you open Octave, it'll look something like this, right? And when you want to open something, you can use the file open. You can also use file open over here. I don't know why it's redundant. Or you can also see all of your files displayed over here. And this helps you navigate through your directories, which hopefully you know what a directory is. But if not, you're about to get a lot more familiar with it this semester. But for example, right now, I'll navigate upwards. So my intro documents in my downloads folder, and I can literally just navigate to it, double click, and this opens the code. Now, this command window that I'm moving around right here, oftentimes, come on, there we go, will end up being down here. So it might look more like this. You've got your file browser, your workspace, command history, yada, yada, not super fun stuff. And you have your editor, and then down in this tab is where you have your command window. Your command window is where everything prints out, right? And those of you who have touched MATLAB obviously know that. But for those of you who haven't, this is where it's basically the terminal for everything to be printed out to your screen as a result of your functions that you're calling. And then you can also manipulate it by literally, like, you can use any function in here, which I'll show you guys in a bit. But I prefer having my command window side by side with my editor. So all you have to do is drag it over here and then go back. Yeah, now it's over here. Which I feel like I just like super backtracked. Probably should have started with that, but whatever. Anywho, zoom back in. Comments, you use this % symbol, and that starts the comment. You can have it on its own line, or you can start it mid-line. You can turn on a diary. So what you can do is, instead of having to manually screenshot your output in your command window, you can use this diary function and you decide, what file it's going to be saved to. You give it some name, some .txt file, and you turn it on. And as you run it, it will save your output to this text file, which is useful because you'll have to submit your command window. So fair warning that this is useful. Yeah, this comment kind of sums up what I'm saying right now. Is you don't have to learn all this immediately. It's just nice to look at sometimes. Creating variables, super straightforward, just x equals 2. Now, if you leave it just like this, which I don't know how well you guys can see it, it will automatically print this x equals 2 to your command window. So by default, everything prints to your command window, which is useful, but also really, really annoying. Because if you forget, you put a semicolon at the end of a line to tell Octave that you don't want it to output to your command window, right? So if you forget a semicolon somewhere and say you have a loop and you forget that semicolon inside a loop that maybe even calls a function that includes arrays, you're going to end up with like a crap load of text printed over and over and over again. And the number of times I've had people be like, Maddie, my code's broken. All I see are all of these numbers. And I'm like, did you look for a semicolon for where this variable that's being printed 5,000 times is? And like 99% of the time, that's exactly what it is. And yeah, I can't help but get frustrated. It's like, dog, we've been doing this, but whatever. Anywho, so remember, by default, with no semicolon at the end of the line, it is going to print it. So by putting that semicolon, you're suppressing its output into the command window, and that's basically just how you put a silencer over it. Defining arrays. So we're going to be playing a lot with vectors. And what's up?
Do you mind showing us the little line of text for the diary command again?
Oh yeah. Right here.
Just put the name of the text file just next to the diary.
Yep.
Before it.
So yeah, this sets it up. You're saying, hey, I want to create a diary and I want it to save to some file that we're going to say is called output.txt. You don't have to make it, it will make it for you, or at least it should. And then you turn diary on, and as soon as you run it, that's when it'll start writing under the diary.
And so let's say that we ran diary without text value saving it to. Where would we go?
I think it throw an error, but I can check. It might just create a generic file. No, it didn't throw an error. So my gut says, although this was already created from the last time I ran it.
Oh, it just needs diary.
Huh? What's up? Hold on. Am I tripping? I don't see what you're talking about.
Look for just like the word diary.
Am I blind? I'm not seeing it.
Oh, it's not on yours. Sorry, I guess it's on mine.
Oh, okay. It probably resaved. Oh, no, mine resaved over output.txt.
I think maybe what you said it's already set.
Maybe. I don't know. Because I didn't clear the variables or commands. So it's possible. Anywho. Great questions. I never really played around with diary because it's like, it's not necessary. It's useful, but it's not necessary. You guys don't have to use it. Anywho. What was I talking about? Oh yeah. Vectors and matrices. We're going to use them a lot. So in this case, this is a vector. And so by default, you can, and I just showed you in like lines 24 and 27, a comma and a space in an array do the same thing. It continues adding on to the row, but then once you implement a semicolon inside of your array, that's when you're telling it to go to the next row. So, yeah. So if you wanted, say, a column vector, you would do like line 32, where all of them are spaced out by semicolons, and that fills it in and indexes it by row and adding rows. And then the other ones, space or comma up to you on what you want to use. I'm usually lazy, so most of the time I just do a space. But comma looks pretty, so that's up to you. Just keep in mind, what you're trying to achieve when you write out your arrays. And another thing that's beautiful, oh gosh, so when I was first learning Octave, I was also learning how to write in Python. Making matrices in Octave is so much easier. It is so beautiful. It is, so this language, well, specifically MATLAB, not Octave, but MATLAB was created by a professor that basically was like, engineers suck at programming, so I'm going to create my own language that's catered towards what they need to do and is easier for them to program because they don't know how to program. And he did a fantastic job. Props to that dude. Because a crap ton of engineering mathematics is matrices and vectors, and MATLAB is specifically designed to easily handle matrices and vectors without having to do lists of lists or any of that other garbage that I despise about Python. I love Python, but despise that. So it's amazing because there's also several functions that are optimized for handling things like vectors and matrices that otherwise you'd have to code by hand, and that would just really suck. And all of this will be coming back to haunt you guys like halfway through the semester when we start our fun matrix math section. So if any of you guys have taken matrix and linear, you're set up for success because a lot of this is matrix and linear content. But you'll be okay if you haven't. So I do want to turn this off because I have too many files in my downloads as it is. Before I move forward, a couple of fun tidbits that I found really useful, that you'll find useful, especially if you have to start debugging later on. You can easily comment out blocks or even just lines of code by doing Control-R instead of manually typing in a % symbol. And then to uncomment it, Control-Shift-R. And both the double pound / hashtag, whatever you want to call it, that and the % symbol are both comments. It doesn't matter. Whatever you want to do. And then, so what I was saying before is, did I screw something up? Sheesh. Do I not have? Oh, I forgot to include the most important part. Okay. In my opinion, and so I'm going to say this, I'm going to try to be really clear about it because it's very important to me. Because if you don't do it, it'll make my life miserable. The most important line of all of your code, aside from your name, that line. So what it does, CLC, it clears out your command window. It just wipes it. Clear clears out all of your stored command history and variables. Wipes all of that clean. And then close all closes all figures and extra windows that you have popped open. And I say that it's necessary for me because if, for example, I'm grading one of your big projects that has a crap ton of output and a bunch of figures, I run your code and then I'm going on to grade somebody else's. And now this person doesn't have that line. When I run that, it's going to have everybody's crap just like all stuck in one. And sometimes it'll even overwrite and screw up your results. So it's just like, it's a nightmare. So please, for your sake and for mine, always include this line right here. And after the third project, if I start noticing that you don't have it, I'm going to start taking off points. And also fair warning, you always have to put your name and the project number on every project. Usually I don't check for that one as often, but I'm not the sole grader. So most of the other TAs will give an automatic 0 if you don't have your name. So I will say, for everybody's sake, just put your name on it every time. Please. Please. Yeah. So yeah, the essential line, please always put it. Honestly, what I normally do is I set up something like this chunk, and save it as a template. And then every time I make a new project, I just duplicate that template and start from there. And that way I know I'm not forgetting anything. Anyway. So yeah, now I'm gonna rerun it so I can get rid of all that crap. There we go. And now I can actually access this. So, all right, cool thing that I'm going to do, playing with the command window. So this is more helpful in the later projects when we work with big matrices. Like at one point, I believe we give you guys a 50 by 50 matrix, and we ask you for a specific component of it. So counting that by hand is actual garbage. So what you can do, and it's mentioned in here somewhere, line 49, extracting a specific element. So you can do that in your main code, or you could just straight up be like A, 2, 3, and hit enter, and then it'll give you your answer. You can also screw around with, like, say you have all these variables already created in your main code, and you didn't do the math already, but you don't feel like adding it into your main code, but you have to like do, I don't know, A times B plus C. You can just pop into the command window, do A times B plus C, and it calculates for you. I used Octave all the time for homework in undergrad. It was great. It's a glorified calculator most of the time. Yeah, and I think we're good to just be good with that, because the rest of this isn't necessary, strictly because we're gonna go over it again. So I feel like we're good at what, 30 minutes on the dot now. Does anybody have any questions? What's that?
So that 823 kind of like doing a 2D array. Where you,
The A23 that I just did.
yeah.
So what I was looking for was the second row, third column of a specific matrix. So I say A23, and it'll index A23, and then it spits it back out. So yeah, because there's like other functions. If you want to just generate a matrix, you can be like 0s, 3, 3. Oh no. Huh? Oh, it's because I put a decimal. Duh. Okay. And that'll generate a 3 by 3 matrix of zeros. You can also adjust it so it's, when you're talking about matrices, or really just arrays, so it can be a vector matrix. In Octave, it usually goes parentheses, row, comma, column. So if you want like a 3-row, 1 column array, you can just do 3, 1, etc. What's that?
Just I wanted to address like the first column.
Hmm?
And output that. How would I do that?
And you want the whole first column?
Just the whole first column.
So what you can do, and Octave's beautiful for this one. So to select all of any component, you use colon in place of a number in the index. So if you want, as you said the first column, right? So you would say of your matrix A, it would be A parentheses colon comma 1 close parentheses. And that selects the entire first row. Or first column, I mean, sorry. Yeah. Because you're saying I want all of the rows of column 1. That makes sense. And I think that's in here. Yeah, of course. Yeah, right there. So that one takes the second column. A colon comma 2. These are fun too. You can create vectors with this fun little notation. So if you want to create some vector of a standard step size, you could say that it equals, so x in this case equals 0 colon 0.25 colon 1. So by default, if you use like this line 54 for creating a vector, it defaults with a step size of 1. So in this case, technically, line 54 could be rewritten as x equals 1:1:5, because it's still that default step size of 1. But if you want a different step size, it'd be like line 56. So you're saying, I want to create a vector from 0 to 1 with a step size of 0.25. So it would create a vector that would be 0, 0.25, 0.5, 0.75, 1. And that makes it easy for loops, especially because you can be like, I don't know, you want some value to loop a certain number of times, and you want its value to change from 0 to 2 or whatever values, and you want it to change a certain amount each time, but like a standard step. And usually that's for like optimization. You know, you want to see how a system operates with a variable changing a certain way. But you guys will get to see that in the next lab. Because yeah, I believe next lab, I have one we use finite difference, and then also the concept of machine epsilon and those fun things, data storage. But yeah, that's an excellent question. I appreciate that. Any other questions? What's that?
So could you repeat? So we've got a project every week, and each project has a quiz.
Mhm.
And was that everything?
No, so each project has a quiz and then code itself,
Right.
and you submit those. And then on top of that, so it's really every week is, well, it's not really every week, you know, we have some off weeks, but every project is, there's a quiz, and that's on web courses. And then there's the project assignment, which includes one big PDF that I want you guys to submit your code and also screenshots of your output and screenshots of any figures, if there are figures for that one. And that's all in one big PDF that you submit that to. So there's 2 components, but really it's like 3 to 4-ish. But I do prefer it all in one big PDF for the projects. But again, I'll talk about it more next week when we actually have a project. Because like, for example, this is what handouts kind of look like. That's not big enough. It's better. This is from spring 2021, or no, summer 2021. So a long time ago. This is not necessarily what project 1 handout's going to look like. But this is what gets posted, or at least something like this. The format never changes. It's just the meat that does. So, you know, you'll be given the topic, you'll be given the problem that you're trying to solve, and then some of the specifics of the things that you have to include, like table of results, yada, yada. What is going to happen is every week, I may not have what the project is going to be exactly. I will have what the theme is, and the code will be almost identical to what you guys will need to satisfy the project. But things like the exact functions may be a little different, or depending on the case, you know, there's some that we have to read in files, and there's some that, yeah, all kinds of stuff. So what I will teach you in lab will likely be very similar, but you will have to modify numbers. It's really long. But, so.
I deleted the window where it prints and I can't find it.
As in like the command window? Did you exit out of it? Because it should be, so if you go in that window at that top left, and then show command window. Yeah. But yeah, if you find that you accidentally close out of any of the tools and you need them, you can always just go into window and like find it, or do reset default window layout. Oh, and one last thing, because I want to specify it now, because sometimes I forget to say it, and then it's kind of frustrating. I have to say it later. My policy. So I try to be as helpful for you guys every week in lab as possible, which sometimes even goes as far as I'll show you how I've done projects in the past, And because of this, my policy, so obviously today doesn't count because it's just the intro lab. But following today, the next few weeks through the rest of the projects, I do not allow photos to be taken of my code at all. And so far as if I see you taking photos of my code, I will give you a 0 for the project. Which I feel like is fair because I usually go pretty slow. So you guys can copy it pretty easily. But alas. I think that's the last of it. Anybody have any final questions? Speak now, forever hold your peace. Okay, I now pronounce you free of Friday. Y'all may have an excellent weekend, or at least I hope you have an excellent weekend.
I have a question about troubleshooting.
Yeah, sure. Give me, yeah, give me 1 second. And if someone wouldn't mind, would you mind hitting the light on the wall? Thank you.